why not roll right into what everyone has been bothering us to talk
You know what,
about
guys? If there's anything that we know is a bread and butter to the CU podcast, it's retro gaming news.
Yeah.
So you think that when we hear about GameStop starting to accept and buy and sell used games,
that we're not going to talk about it?
Of course we're going to talk about it. So we appreciate the 1,000 tweets and messages that I got on Facebook and Twitter.
It was funny because some people were like, is there going to be a podcast soon about this? What are we going to call an emergency forum to discuss?
We did do an emergency WrestleMania one last year.
Yeah, sure. But anyways, so GameStop is being dumb. I'm going to sound biased, but I think the points I can make here and the points that Pat will probably make will show everyone why this is really fucking dumb.
They're going to start doing this in 2 locations.
New York
pilot
and Alabama.
Birmingham.
And there's going to be about 250 stores that are doing it. And as of right now, from what I understand, you can go in and sell your old systems. And it was like Nintendo,
NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PlayStation, N64, and Dreamcast. So you're talking, late 80s to up to 2000 era.
So they will take it, and they're going to send it to a refurbishing plant. And what they're going to do is from there, they are going to sell the titles online.
After testing and repairing.
Yes. And something I did notice that I liked, replacing the batteries. Excuse me. They will not be sold in stores, which is something that is actually going to greatly affect what I say later. You can go in and you can have an associate help you browse the games online if for whatever reason you can't fucking browse an internet page. And they will send them to your door.
Which is exactly how Funkoland used to do it in the late 90s, by the way.
Yeah. So there's a couple reasons why I think this is fucking horrible.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why it's horrible. You go first.
There's a lot of reasons why it's horrible. I can just go. The prices, GameStop is okay. Selling retro video games is very wishy-washy. There's a lot of fluctuations in prices. Nothing stays the same. So for GameStop to not undersell themselves, for GameStop to make money, they are going to have to shoot for the fucking moon on these prices. And it's I promise you, these prices are going to be insane.
Not just shoot for the moon. That means they're going to offer you a hell of a lot less than you'd offer even eBay or a mom and pop shop like Luna, because it sounds like they're not testing these in stores. So if they're buying a Nintendo for $10, say, or 15, they don't know if that Nintendo works. They're just going to buy it sight unseen, send it back, and it may or may not work.
Actually, so I think one of the articles says that they will test hardware. They will only spot check controllers in games. It was in the link with the interview. So I mean, they said they will. I mean, here's the thing. Now you're gonna have to train all your employees how to. I mean, it's not that hard, but you're gonna train them all how to hook up all these retro systems.
Okay.
And test them.
Okay.
Which is dumb.
All right. So even if that's going to be true, or they're going to test everything thoroughly, which I don't see.
No.
The cost incurred of shipping this stuff to a plant in multiple areas, probably throughout the country or a couple, hiring people to refurbish, which is going to have to be done for some of these, replace batteries on a Dreamcast. Maybe there's a controller port that doesn't work all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Repackaging it up, putting it online. That's a cost incurred that's going to be passed on to
what they can give you.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't mean you're not going to be getting, $40 or $50 NESs. Oh no.
Right.
That's not going to happen by any stretch of the imagination.
No. And I can offer you 25 cash for an NES. I can offer you 35 credit. I will eat my words, but I'm going to guess that GameStop's not even going to approach that.
No. Absolutely not.
Here's another problem with it. And this one is one that I don't think a lot of people are thinking of. If they're only selling online, what is the reasoning for anyone to go to GameStop online to get their retro games when they can do eBay and they can still do trades? You're not changing anything. You're not changing the game. All you're doing is putting another online store up there for retro titles.
My pal Chris Kohler at Wired did a follow-up interview with a GameStop representative, more details about this, about what will GameStop buy back. They're going to take in any game, console, and first-party accessory for platforms. Any Nintendo brand controller, they'll take it. They aren't interested in third-party aftermarket stuff. Again, the knowledge base is already going to be limited to what they can have in the GameStop system. They're not going to be retraining employees about the nuances of knowing label variants and things like that nature, let alone repros and replacements. But we'll get into that later. They're going to do just a power-up test on the hardware.
Okay, that's
power-up.
Sorry.
So I was correct. Power-up. Does Nintendo turn on? Yes.
Well, it's still testing something.
Sure, doesn't mean that Nintendo works.
No.
Doesn't mean that Genesis works or that Sega CD works. Visual inspection on the etc. software. Visual inspection. They're not going to have time to test it at GameStop.
Right.
50. Someone comes in with 50 games like at Luna, they're not going to have time to test 50 games at a GameStop.
Furthermore, then, like you were saying, then if they're only doing the power-up test, that means they're going to offer you even less because they have to assume they have to. A business like them, they have to assume it's broken.
They're going to assume probably 10% don't work, something like that.
Yeah.
This is the first thing I thought. I got broken consoles. I'm taking them to GameStop.
Yep.
Why not? You're going to take them? Okay. Give me $10 for my broken Nintendo. It doesn't matter. It's worthless to me now. What happens after that? They're going to reach the location. It looks like Grapevine. Thorough evaluations, like I said, testing, repair if necessary. These are all costs that can be passed on to the consumer, by the way. Make sure that it functions. Check the batteries, blah, 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 blah. This is disheartening to me. If a battery needs replacing, they'll do it before it's off for sale. If something is beyond repair, quote unquote, it'll get junked.
Yes.
Which is a shame because you can always use parts of stuff.
Well, and not all systems provide usable parts, but there are definitely ones that do. Like any NES that gets junked is going to upset me because I can use the shells, I can use the trays, I can use all sorts of stuff from those.
Asking, since Chris Kohler is a video game collector like myself, he asked, what about the condition? How does that come into play? There's going to be a single SKU in the system for every game. Meaning, condition will not matter.
Yep.
Meaning, boxes or manuals, meaning having the disc case for a PlayStation game will not matter. So it'll be do you have the game to play in the system? That's all that's going to matter in the system. So, again, that will mean that when you buy it online in the system, it will be a crapshoot of what you get. Some people will win. Some people will buy an NES game and get it complete for the same price they have it loose. But you might buy a PlayStation game, and just get the disc and not the case. Yeah. It's going to be a total crapshoot, and that's the only way they can manage this.
And right, and they, he really waffled on that question. I think it caught him off guard because he's like, well, if it gets to the point where we have like an equal amount boxed and an equal amount loose, then we'll create a separate SKU. But it's like, when are you ever going to have an equal amount boxed or an equal amount loose of a game? You don't understand your own market that you're trying to sell to.
The representative said if it's 98% just cartridge or just disc, we may not need to change anything in the system. But if it's like a Genesis game, you know how many Genesis games don't have the case and which do. It's like 50-50.
And I was going to say, Genesis is like right down the line.
It's ridiculous why people didn't keep the Genesis case.
And
anyway.
it is getting to the point where Genesis games in a case are worth more than the loose ones.
They're worth like almost double in some cases, if not more.
Now, 8 years ago that wasn't true, but now.
It's possible that, in quotes, on occasion, somebody will get happy, surprised when they open up the box and find a complete game for the price of a loose one. So they might have to do 2 listings, they said, eventually, but they're going to, like I said, this is a pilot test, 250 stores. They're going to see how it goes. He asked Chris Kohler, how do you stop fakes? It's pretty easy to buy a fake label, Chris says, and pass off your worthless crap as a rare Nintendo game, especially if the GameStop employees are only doing a visual inspection.
See, I think this is where a lot of things that we've talked about prior are going to really bite them in the ass, and they're not going to deal with it. You can pretend like you're teaching your employees visual inspection, but half the people that work at GameStop don't even know modern fucking video games. The people who can spot fakes are people like you, and me, and Chris Kohler.
Hey, assholes, I think that no one gets hurt when a repro Little Samson gets made.
Get ready for a lot of ass hurt.
Get ready about, you're going to think, we're going to be screwing GameStop. They're going to give us money for our Little Samson. Think about the poor fools who are going to order it from GameStop and get sent a fake fucking game, potentially.
And then, if that sort of thing takes off, then the whole market gets polluted with fakes. And good. Of course, I'm getting rid of most of my NES.
And of course, people that are in favor of repros are just going to blame GameStop for not knowing it's fake versus the people that are making the fakes. But whatever, go fuck yourself.
So yeah,
so that's going to be iffy. They're probably not going to train them on variants. I don't think they're probably going to have different SKUs for the two different versions of Metroid. They probably won't, and what if the price start bouncing for one versus the other?
Well, this is what...
greatest hits versus regular versions.
So this is bringing it back to kind of what the first thing out of my mouth when I found out. GameStop is like a very large, or is like a person trying to get through a very small door. That's what retro game sales is going to be like for them. They can't maneuver. An independent store, for lack of a better term, has agility. You have to be able to bend and adapt very, very quickly when you're selling retro games. If you want to make any money, if you want to keep your customers happy, and you want to stay in business, you have to adapt on a day-by-day basis.
Price fluctuations can happen by the week.
We change prices on games almost weekly for certain games. So I just don't think they've got it. Because, like I said, the end result of all this is incredibly high prices on all the games.
It's incredibly high prices, and they always have to hedge their bets by offering way less in order to make sure they make money. This is a huge corporation. They have tons of employees. They're paying the people at the refurbished center, paying for posters to mail these systems across the country, potentially. And so I don't see any benefit. The only benefit I see to this, if you're that person that ends up you order a game and you get the complete version of that NES game that's worth a hell of a lot more, versus that's the only person that wins, but that's going to be the minority is going to win. Everyone else is going to lose.
So I do want to point out that they did say that the return policy is still in effect. So if you get something that you're not happy with, you can send it back. Are you going
to pay for the shipping yourself?
Right.
Are they going to challenge you if it's an expensive game?
It's still such a pain in the ass that it's going to... If a person has to do that once, they are probably never going to do that again. They're just going to go to eBay and go, that's in the condition I want it, I'm buying it.
No, plus, like I said, you buy a game from GameStop, you assume it's going to be real. You don't know that you might be getting a fake game or a repro label.
Yeah.
Or throwing this out there, what if they get what if they make a SKU in the future for complete in-box games, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of fake manuals and boxes? Yeah. What if they make a SKU for years online for a sealed version, and now you have fake seals getting resold?
The problem is they're entering
Pandora's box.
They're entering a large collector's market, and I don't think I don't think that's even crossed the higher ups' mind. No. They're not entering a video game market. They're entering a collector's market, and with a collector's market brings a whole lot more bullshit that in the end they're going to find they can't deal with.
I don't see this going
past pilot. I don't.
No, I don't. It's just unfortunately, it's just gonna deplete those two areas, Birmingham and New York City, of retro games, because people, you say that, people always say, well, people are smart, they know what they have. Not necessarily. If you see a sign saying, you walk past, how many GameStops are there versus mom and pop video game stores? 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1. If you see a sign, say you're a grandma or something, my grandkid had a Nintendo. You see a sign that, we'll give you money for your old Nintendo. I have that back in the closet. It'll be convenient for you to get out, drive, give them the 100 games your grandson had or son had, and you're getting pittance for it.
Yeah.
Versus you making money on it, and versus the games not being shipped off to some detention center somewhere to come back on the market maybe eventually.
I wish I had looked, but it's because the pilot program has supposedly started. There's got to be someone out there who's mentioned what they're offering for certain prices. Games for like Mario 3.
I'm gonna throw this out there. What if when this pilot ends, they have a ton of inventory? What happens to that inventory? Who are they going to sell that inventory to?
Well, same thing with the PS2s. They have never documented they've never said what they're going to do with all those PS2s. So then GameStop just sits on a bunch of shit, and then what happens? Do they try to sell it off
eBay themselves?
Yeah.
Sell to a reseller, a giant reseller like Lukey Games, to buy it all, then mark up the price even more?
Or fucking absolute worst case scenario, they decide it's not worth it for them and they junk it.
Yeah, I hope they wouldn't do that, but I don't see any positiveness at all. Absolutely none.
No. And like in as the owner and I were discussing, just on a base level, the fact that it's online only does nothing to differentiate it.
No.
And does nothing to entice people to go to the GameStop website to get it.
All it does is, like I said, Funkoland, late 90s, early 2000s, when they're still selling games there, it's clicking to see, hey, maybe it'll be a stadium that's become available, and I can buy it. If it's real and if it's there, that's also coming down to it. What an absolute mess.
You can use your store credit towards it.